CountryWide CONNECT with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
A man who is in full celebratory mode, and so he should. Tonight, as I've said on the show, that there is a big moment for Christchurch, a milestone. After years of planning, debate, rebuild, One New Zealand Stadium at Te Kaha opens its doors for its first major event. It is a covered venue. It will seat around 30,000 for sports. God knows how many for a concert. It is a massive step in Christchurch earthquake recovery. Sam MacDonald was one of the councillors who was involved and strongly backed lifting the capacity from 25 to 30,000 seats. Sam, g'day, mate. Welcome to the show. I'm right on that. I remember the debate. You took the bull by the horns, I think. I know it wasn't just you, and I know you're not going to take full credit for it, but you did an incredible job getting it from 25 to 30, right? G'day, welcome.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Andy. Good to see you. I actually remember your text on the day saying, well done, be very proud for the people of Christchurch. So, look, it was a huge thing. And, I think what the city needed was certainty. And, what we'd heard from people, 30,000 people signed a petition that said, actually, don't cut this thing back. We've waited long enough. Be decisive. Spend the extra money, but actually see the future benefit of that across the South Island. And it's just, I'm beyond proud at the team that have done the work on it. It's all very well for me to say, hey, we've done this, but actually, really, except for making the decisions, I haven't had to lift a finger. There's thousands of people who have contributed to this, and, it's theirs to celebrate tonight along with the people of Christchurch.
Sam, you and I have known each other for a long time. You're a fellow West Coaster, born and bred in Greymouth. I'm not born and bred there, but we've lived there and I've known you, went to school there. In 2011, when the earthquake hit, I don't know if you were in Christchurch at the time. You probably weren't. You were probably on the coast. Were you? You were. I wasn't.
No, I was. Yeah, I was in Christchurch walking from University Hall to the university.
It was a long time ago then. Yeah, you weren't even a councillor then. But I guess the point is that this is almost to me, and I don't know about you, but this feels like the final piece of the puzzle, opening the stadium tonight. And I'm not sure if I know we're labouring on it on the show, but I'm not sure if New Zealand fully gets what it means for Christchurch. Do you think?
Yeah, look, I think you're right. It's effectively the last big anchor project for the council as well. You'll have things like the museum and the cathedral, which are issues we'll need to resolve. But, from a sort of events and sporting capital point of view, this is it. And this is really, I think, the thing that people are most emotionally attached to after that earthquake. So many people and so many kids actually, sacrificed a lot to go and sit in a polo stadium out in Addington for so long in the cold that I think when they get in there tonight, they'll go, oh my God, I see why we were waiting for this. It's just great.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember, obviously, Jade Stadium and Lancaster Park, as it was known, and just how much of a central venue that was for Christchurch. And that stadium was at its peak, wasn't it, when they just finished that magnificent stand. What did it seat? 40-odd thousand or something, obviously open. And unfortunately, we then went to, and no criticising of Apollo or the stadium or whatever its various names. That filled a fantastic purpose. But the city was incomplete without a major stadium. And this is magnificent.
Oh, absolutely. And I think actually I was in town this morning and so many people were in there like you and I with Crusader shirts on. And I actually thought this is effectively saying to the people of Christchurch that invested after the earthquake, people literally poured tens of millions of dollars back into our city with no guaranteed return. And I think, this is honouring our commitment that actually, hey, all of the private sector got on and did it. Yep, there was a lot of public money, but actually private people have rebuilt Christchurch and, now they'll get the benefit of it. Just anecdotally, a friend of mine is flying down for the rugby tonight and he's in Wellington at the moment. And he said, I'll jump on an earlier flight and sort of meet you at some stage. He texted me and said, I can't get on a flight until 4:30, an earlier flight, because they're chocker. And that's what the city needs, is people from out of town coming in, spending their money and celebrating with us. And, that's actually the point of these things is economic activity and getting people to spend money.
And Christchurch now is obviously, a lot of people are talking about it from around the country. There's people flooding in, the housing quality is good. The actual CBD now is just magnificent. And I suppose the hospitality precinct, which you and I will be frequenting over this weekend, I actually can't wait. I just think it's going to be something that New Zealand, I don't think New Zealand's kind of seen it before. We thought the Cape Town and Wellington was good, its location. Unless you come to Christchurch and you look down Cashel Street and you realise that it is literally 2 blocks and there's pubs right next door. It is a phenomenal venue, phenomenal location.
Oh, it is. In fact, I was actually speaking with the mayor this morning, and he had been talking to one of the hospitality guys. And you'll recall we had supercars here last weekend, and that packed in, I think, 65,000 people over 3 days. One of the bars in town had their biggest weekend ever. And you sort of go, actually, this is what they've waited for, is getting people into town, out of town money coming in, and it's just wonderful. So, look, I think a lot of people have made a lot of sacrifices to get to this point. And it's just great today that, we see that come to fruition.
Sam, just coming back to increasing the capacity from 25 to 30,000, right? That is correct. I actually thought it was from 30 to 35, but it is 25 to 30, right?
Yeah, it is.
What was
so that's seated. So we'll actually have concert capacity of about 36.
Okay, so when it comes to what was the actual add-on cost of that? I know it's done and dusted now and it's done, but, how many events are expected to be at that 30,000?
Yeah, so just to take you back a step, effectively what happened was that after the earthquakes, the government zoned the land in the middle of town. So they designated it and said, you must build your stadium there. It was called the Blueprint. Then both National and Labour had a conversation during the election with the people of Christchurch and said, who puts in some money? It worked out that the government ended up putting in, Jacinda Ardern, actually, the Labour guys, put in about 220 million towards the stadium. And then we had to come up with the difference. So what had happened, essentially, is that when I joined council, I'd realised that the budgets hadn't been reflected or updated over that period of time to reflect cost pressures or inflation. And so we looked at it, we got the pricing, and they come back and said, actually, this is going to cost you sort of 50 million more than we thought, even with the government contribution. And at that point, we said, okay, we're going to need to do some cost cutting. The feedback from the public was actually, no, we don't want to do that. We want to box on. Subsequent to that, it then cost another about 150 million. So we're at 683 million all up for this thing. We'll probably get some back in the wash up, which is really good. But what it did do, and I think this is the thing that people has lost on them, is that by keeping at the bigger capacity, the annual contribution from ratepayers is essentially non-existent. And so, we'll pay for the rates and the insurance, but to run the venue, we can actually do that on a standalone commercialised basis because we've got a lot more food stores and eateries and that bigger capacity for people.
Right. So I haven't been into it yet, and I am really, really looking forward to tonight. First game, obviously, there. I think we're going to head down there about 6 o'clock. Are you there for the full weekend, Sam? You're going to every game?
Yeah, I am. I'm going out. I'll be sitting in the stand, which is great. It was really interesting. I actually went through it for the first time with Jerry Brownlee a couple of weeks ago, and Jerry was, along with John Key, were instrumental in that. And it was really nice actually to walk around with him, given what he'd done for the city, and to be able to reflect on it. And everyone's taken away. So you'll be taken aback when you go there tonight.
One of the things I haven't said this. I was down in Bunnings the other day and I bumped into Lester Whaanuku, and I asked him whether he had been into the stadium, and he actually said to me, no. He said, I want to experience it for the first time when I run out on the field, which I thought was quite fascinating. I've got a feeling they may have gone in for a captain's run the other day. I'm not sure what happened there. I couldn't quite, but I just thought that was a really interesting attitude from a player like him who really said, I want to experience along with everyone else. So, it's going to be a fascinating experience.
It's incredible, and it's so you are so close to the field. It's regardless of where you are in there, whether you're right at the back or right down the front, you feel like you're right in the thick of it. It's just fantastic. There
has been the controversy about the horses, the Crusaders horses, right? And I don't think that's completely done and dusted yet, Sam. I think, there's been that's probably the one fly in the ointment. And I saw Colin Mainsbridge's statement, and I could tell how nervous actually he was in making that statement and how hurt the Crusaders organisation were. And I think they've been I think some of the fans have actually been quite unfair. I personally think probably something will occur. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I guess probably from when I first read it, my first question was, hey, from our point of view, we own the building. Have we done anything to prevent them doing it? And the council officials and Venues Otautahi who run it for us have assured me that we have bent over backwards to facilitate the horses. So I guess I was a bit frustrated at the time that the blame seemed to be heaped back to the council and to the operator, because I've been assured that they have told us we will work in with them if they want to run the horses round. So look, I hope they do something. I was surprised by it. Probably what surprised me the most is that, I'd been at the Canterbury Highlanders game a couple of weeks ago, and, and I know they had another game there sort of just before they announced they weren't doing the horses. And I sort of thought, well, this can't have just come about in 1 or 2 days. And so, look, it didn't seem right to me. It didn't pass the sniff test. But, what I wanted to be assured of is that actually council haven't done anything that's prevented this. And, I'm assured repeatedly that it's just purely a matter for the Crusaders.
Oh, really? So it's not red tape. It's not the stadium. It's not the turf. It's the Crusaders' decision.
Yep, that's what I've been reassured, because I had the same reaction as everyone when I watched Colin online and went, oh my goodness, have we done something here at the last moment that's caused this? And have been assured repeatedly that no, that's not the case.
All right. Well, that's a very interesting comment there, and because I know I was sort of siding a little bit with Colin, thinking, look, the Crusaders are probably stuck on this one, but if it's because there was comments about television cameras and all that sort of stuff, and being too close. I don't think it's an issue with getting the horses in and out. Horses will go on a horse truck. Polo ponies are used to being on horse trucks, no problem. That's actually not a problem. You don't need stables or anything like that. So. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I should just say I'm not wanting to start and I'm not intentionally sort of put it back on the Crusaders. I'm just simply saying, I have a role as a governor of the city in terms of protecting our reputation and actually assuring people that we've done the right thing. And I've been repeatedly assured by our officials that we have. All
right. Well, Sam, if I see you around over the weekend, you and I are going to have a beer, and I'll even shout you one, mate, because as I said to you, that text I sent you, you should be very proud, and your team. So it's going to be a pretty special weekend here. Anzac weekend as well. It just couldn't be better, eh?
Absolutely. And good on you, and thanks for all you do, Andy. Really appreciate it.
All right, Sam MacDonald's there. Councillor for the Christchurch City Council, yes, and it is going to be a pretty special time, so I am very, very much looking forward to it.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.